guys, I'm so happy. I have my good friend, Dr. Haley Schultz here. Haley and I were just talking about how we've literally been posting since we were pre-dents, and now we're just like, how did we become grown dentists already? Haley, break down, you're finishing up your first year, right?
Yeah, technically graduated a year from May, so I'm technically in my full second year now. We're rolling through. So very exciting. It's surreal. It's kind of like the first 6 months felt like a little warm up because now
Uh-huh.
I'm like, all right, well, we're in 2025, so let's just reflect on like January to January now and just not even worry about what happened last calendar year for the half year working as a dentist. I don't know if you felt that way.
Oh, 100%. Could not agree more. What do you think was the biggest, like, I know there's like so many learning curves, but I also feel like everyone's learning curve is a little bit different too, but depending on like what they're drawn to. Like, what was your biggest realization after the first year?
I went through like a mini crisis in like April. I was just so down on myself
Oh
about,
my
yeah, like I felt like whatever I had been doing was just like not enough progress,
God.
not enough growth. And I think it was because I was approaching that 1 year from graduating mark and I had all these goals. Maybe I'd written down, maybe I had talked about with people, or maybe they were just in my head, expectations. And there were some things that I was just not quite there yet. So it was really frustrating and I was really down on myself. But I took time to reflect and focus more on gratitude and all the things I did accomplish, which is a lot. It's been a really good year. I'm in a very fortunate associate position where I feel pretty successful and I'm learning a lot and growing a lot, probably at a faster pace than some other people. But even with all that, I still had some of that maybe imposter syndrome or just, negativity towards my own development.
Well, I have to ask, okay, so when you mentioned the whole goals part of it, one, how did you come up with these like goals that you had for yourself? And then two, do you feel like your goals have changed like throughout the year? Or are you like, these are still my goals?
So I had goals going into the first 12 months of working. So that was what finished up mid June.
Got it.
And then we also set goals at work for 2025. So that's kind of what I was hinting at the beginning was by the time June had rolled around, I said, I'm just going to focus on the 2025 stuff, forget about kind of what I was saying last year.
Got
But that
it.
was part of the con because if I look back to my goals for starting work, I pretty much have accomplished all of them, but I have not accomplished everything for 2025 yet, but it's only halfway through the year. But you know how we are. You get down on yourself, you get impatient, and it did turn around. And one thing that helped me with that was I went to a conference in person in Michigan, like our state dental association, and
Oh,
it was
cute.
really reinvigorating. I went a couple weeks after feeling down for a few weeks just by chance, and it really helped reset me, light my fire again, remind me part of why I do what I do, and really helped me get things back on track. But to answer your original question of how I set goals, a lot of reflection. And then our team at work, we have a coaching program that we work with. So we would
That's so
have like
cool.
a start of the year kickoff meeting. So that was a whole 8 a.m. to noon till our lunch break that we spent diving into what we want 2025 to look like on individual team member levels, but also goals as the office. So that's how I set all those clinical goals. And then personally, I just think it's fun to set outside of work goals. So I have those own lists and I share them on my podcast and kind of how I'm progressing through them. Just so much you can look back on the year and see kind of how your year went in all different parts of your life. It's not all money or stats. It can be, I want to feel this way when I do this, are some of the things I tried to focus on.
Honestly, like, I feel like you bring up such a good point because we are so consumed with our day to day that it's hard to get a bird's eye view. But then when you get that bird's eye view of like looking at your goals and like seeing how much you actually have accomplished, even though it didn't feel like it. And then also you had mentioned like the gratitude piece of it. I feel like all of those give you that bird's eye view to be like, wow, like things aren't so bad. And it's funny because hearing you talk, like I actually went through like a very similar thing, honestly. Like I feel like even like this year, like sometimes I'll be kind of down about things and I'll talk to my boss and then he'll always be like, he'll always say like practice gratitude. And then like sometimes I'll be like, but like I'm afraid that if I'm too grateful, then like I'll become complacent. And he's like, Connie, no one's ever been too grateful. Like that's not a thing. And then like I actually practice it and I'm like, wow, I really do feel better. When you're practicing gratitude, how like what does that look like?
Good question. I love what you were saying too. Like you really can't be too grateful. We
Right.
worry about not being successful enough, not growing enough, but as you put out that good energy, just more good flows to you. I really do notice that and believe that for my own life. And I see it in a lot of other people that we know in the dental circle, their lives. And it really is so impactful. So for me, mindset wise, I just try to stay positive day to day. I try to be a really positive light for patients. Like we had a patient this week who was just very, very grumpy, unhappy person and really felt done dirty by the dental world prior to coming
Mm.
into us. And I mean, I'm sure we've all experienced that. And after, towards the end of his appointment, he made a comment to the assistant, just everyone here is just so happy, kind of in like an angry way because he didn't feel happiness in his life.
Uh-huh.
And over the next appointment, he really started to kind of at least like let down his guard. He was still not the happiest person, but you could see that he was curious, like, why do people in this office operate with such gratitude? Because that's something I practice, but it's very foundational to our whole office team and the environment when you're in there. And even though he was in for a root canal, which people, that's like, oh, I never want a root canal, it just sounds like an intimidating procedure. He literally left and was like, this was probably the best part of my day. And
Oh
it's
my
just like crazy to hear for a root canal. And it's just goes to show that you can really impact people with your gratitude, and it can be such a snowball effect on maybe we're making his life just a little bit better, or maybe by seeing we made his life better, now we're happier and we have even more happiness to share with people. So it's a lot of a snowball effect of just going into every situation kind of like annoyingly pleasant. You don't have to be like super perky if that's not your vibe. It's not necessarily my vibe, but like zen and peaceful and positive is how I enter a lot of situations. And it's hard in dentistry, as many people know. You go from room to room, patient to patient, all these different personalities, all these different scenarios. Some people are happy with you, some people are mad at you, some people hate you and haven't met you yet. So you have to be able to reset every time you walk into a room. And that's a big learning curve too, from things you were saying originally. What's adjustments compared to dental school? That's a huge one, is the volume that you see every day, and being able to show up for every single patient experience as your best self is a challenge. And making sure that you have a way when you walk through that door to reset, knowing this is a new human that deserves the very best that I can give. So I try to have those mindsets throughout the day, and a lot of just looking around me and being grateful for my team and the life that I have. So it's really just a lot of thinking and reflection.
Wow, that's like so awesome to hear. Like, I'm so impressed by you and your team because for someone to say the root canal was the best part of their day, like, that's what it's all about, is like giving someone that experience. You guys must have been like freaking out because I think that is like the coolest thing.
Yeah, it was really nice to hear. And again, I don't think like we've changed this person's life dramatically, but he decided to come back and become an established patient. So like we're warming things up, and we really can make big differences little by little as people start to feel somewhere where they're welcome and they're supported and they're encouraged to be their best self. We're one of those more like whole health dental offices. So we really encourage people to shoot for the stars and go for the absolute best health that they can, dentally and otherwise. And when we see patients that lean into that and do it, it truly does change their lives. And it's so cool to be a part of that.
Totally. And I think it's like so a testament to like you guys and how like present you were with him because like what comes to mind when I hear like you talking about him and the situation in your team is like you're so right. Like literally the whiplash dentists go through in one room, it's like I hate you. The next room, it's like you're my favorite person ever. And it's like so disorienting for one human to go through that. And I think that's like both the beauty and the hard part of the job, which kind of brings me to like the main meat of this episode. I wanted to hear from you. I know like after a year of working and just like being a human that's gone through so much schooling, a lot of times we have like so many stories of conversations we wish we had with people, things we wish we said, whether it's like patients or classmates or coworkers. So I kind of wanted to hear your perspective on what's a conversation that you wish that you had with someone and what was the lesson that you really took away from that? And it can be multiple people too.
When you had mentioned this was your summer series and topic, I was thinking a lot about it because I've been fortunate to, in my opinion, not have too much crazy conflict in my life. I think I am a little conflict averse. I kind of avoid it. And that is the one thing I wanted to share in that regard is how I've grown in that, because I've had plenty of scenarios where I avoided conflict, avoided addressing an issue, and it did not work in my favor. And
Mm.
things could have been resolved so much better. So that's kind of the overarching lesson that I've learned and been working on from this first instance that comes to mind, knowing that the outcome was not so great. Now, as more have come up, even into working, I try to push myself through it and try to keep growing so that I can address problems head on and not think about it and think about it and think about it. Because the more you think about it, the more fearful you get. And you're just letting that build up and build up and build up till you're just like petrified and might not do anything at all. And it could have been so simple if you just did it in the first place. And usually, what we're worrying about is being the worst outcome is like so slim chances that that happens. And when we were talking about gratitude, one of the really impactful things I've heard people mention is instead of going into something thinking, "Oh, what's the worst that can happen? Why don't you think what's the best that can happen?" And focus on that. Focus on the positive. And if you're going into it with positive energy and expectations and hopes, you're honestly going to probably be presenting yourself in a better way where you're better likely to get the outcome you want to.
You bring up like two perfectly good points that are like related because one, I honestly think like that you hit the nail on the head. That was actually the biggest lesson I learned. Like my first year was conflict is actually good and helpful in the case of working because when you face conflict, you can like unpack things deeper with patience. But then also, and I also think as people, we are kind of like trained to be like, whether it's people pleasing or high achieving, I think we tend to think like conflict is bad and you should avoid bad things. I think like that's a human nature, right? But then the second point that you brought up that was really nice was granted that conflict is good and like helps us work through things. It doesn't mean we should constantly seek conflict and negative things too. Like approaching something as like what's the best that can happen is just so good because it literally like they've done studies about how that like reprograms your mind. And like my previous guest, Dr. Steven, is like the perfect testament to that. Did you listen to his episode?
Yes, I loved that episode. It was funny because the day it came out, I went to dinner with some of my old roommates who are both still in dental school, and I'm graduated. And we met up for dinner because they're on a rotation, happens to be in the city where I work. So they're like across the state, happened to be there all by chance. We're like, let's meet up for dinner. And they're the ones that brought up, they're like, did you listen to the podcast with Steven and Connie? And it was so cool. And it really made me think about this and that. And I'm like, actually, yes, I did listen on my drive here. And I love both of them. And then we like spent so long like taking away the pearls from the episode because we had both just listened to it.
Wait, that means so much. I'm totally gonna let him know that and send him this clip because that is like so cool. And like that's the example of the power of and what we were talking about earlier is like showing up positively. I am curious, like, so what is like a specific person in this circumstance or like a conversation that you've had where like that was the example of like the avoiding the hardship, avoiding the conflict that you were talking about?
Yeah. So going back, like the first one that came to mind, it was in dental school. I was on a leadership board with another person in my class, and we just like did not get along well. And
Mm,
I think I'm like a pretty nice person. So in general, even if there is a conflict, I'm going to go about it in the nicest way that I can.
mhm.
But at this time, I had a lot less confidence in general. And I didn't want to be perceived as being, again, like too aggressive or like rude and snotty and thinking I'm a know-it-all and like this like seniority power position or whatever. So I kind of was just overly passive and I never addressed all the things that bothered me. And it really just like put a sour tone between us for like the rest of dental school and was just awkward and like
Mm.
I feel like people could pick up on it and it just made other people uncomfortable. And that's one of those like things I never did anything about it to this day. And it's just like I think about it, I'm like, ugh, like me and this person just like do not vibe. And it
Mm.
probably could have been fixed just by calling out the elephant in the room, like, hey, clearly there's some tension between us. I know maybe I have done these certain things. How did that make you feel or whatever? But I never tried because I was just too scared.
I think like that is the most relatable thing I've ever heard. Like student orgs, first of all, I think like student orgs are insane because if you think about it, you're in a pressure cooker of so much pressure, so many personalities. Like I almost look back. I did this today. You look back on yourself when you're a student and you're like, wow, I was like a kettle waiting to like blow a fuse because you're just filled with so many emotions and like there's so much unnatural like pressure. So I totally don't blame you at all because I think we've all been there. Let's pretend now. Oh, also I really liked what you said about how it seems like you would approach this with like curiosity, being like, how did that make you feel? Because most people when they confront people they're like da 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 like rattling like off like what they think. So I'm curious now, like let's pretend we can take you back in time and like you're formulating a text or talking to this person. Like what exactly would you say?
See, this is what's so funny is because like what I was like considering and doing then
Uh-huh.
would have been like very poor ways of handling it.
Really? What was
like
that?
like I feel like I would have texted. I would have been way too timid to like
Uh-huh.
talk in person, which is
Got
just
it.
so bad because then they're going to interpret it a certain way, which might not be how you meant it. No matter how clear you think the message is, it's
Right.
just going to lack the human connection and the emotion that you intended. So don't text them, talk to them in person. And then I feel like I would have just either, if I went full send, like acted out in a moment of frustration and said something exactly like you said, just like, the way you're doing this is causing a lot of problems. People aren't liking this. And
Mm.
I think I'm right because of this. And this is what we're going to do because I'm the one in charge. Like, I could have done that. I did not. I, with, had some
Maybe it's better that you
restraint.
didn't.
Yeah, I had some restraint, but instead I just like did nothing because I didn't know or have the confidence to do what we were just saying is the better thing of sitting down as early as possible rather than when there's a
Mm.
bunch of repeat incidents and the intensity and frustration is building. Like the first time you notice something that you just don't agree with, especially in a leadership position, casually as that same day, try to find a moment where they're not around other people and say, hey, so and so, can I talk to you for a minute? And then just bring up when this happened. I noticed this was the outcome, or this didn't seem to go very well from my perspective. How did you think it went? And it's so much more casual, so much more low stakes, and it could avoid all the many, many, many more uncomfortable, poor things that happened because I never did or said anything.
That's such a good point, and I love how you approached it again with like those questions because looking back, I feel like in general in life, everybody kind of has things that they're holding inside and hoping someone will ask them. So if you had asked them now, like, how did this make you feel? How do you think this went? They're like, oh, I'm so happy you asked, and then they're spewing it out, and then they probably feel better, and that lets their guard down. Um, Looking back on this, do you think that like how has this shaped now? Because I imagine you're working with a team all the time. Like, is this also how you conduct, let's say, for example, you need to talk to an assistant or a hygienist about something? How do you try to approach that too?
Absolutely. And that's so directly can be translated to that exact situation. Sometimes, if we have new team members joining, I try to just directly, after the patient's gone, while we're cleaning, maybe I'll stay and help them
Mm,
clean up the room and just casually be like, oh, how'd that feel for you? And just let them talk. Try to be more of a listener, even in a scenario where you have something to bring up. Just try to listen first, let them talk, and then see if you can work in what you were saying, anyways, because maybe they're thinking the same thing. And also, just a little side note, I've noticed, and through one of the owners at my work, I learn a lot from him with communication. But pretty much people aren't going to do anything or respond to it as well if they don't think it's their own idea. So if you can find a way to like coax the conversation to get them to say, yeah, like I bet it would have been easier if I flipped the suction around when the etch was spraying everywhere so the patient didn't taste it. Like if they can have that click in their brain, they're going to actually want to do it. And then you're not being bossy and yelling at them and making them feel bad. You can just let them talk through the procedure, maybe point out something and see if they can get there. So try more being inquisitive and listening and see if you can guide someone through the thing that you were noticing that you want improved.
that is like such a good point. That's like one of the best pearls I've ever heard. Is like make them think it's their idea because like it doesn't matter necessarily on paper. Like it totally could be your idea, but I think when people come to that conclusion themselves, they just have so much more conviction and belief and just so much more like of a why rather than like, well, they told me to, so like I'll see how I feel the next time this happens. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And it kind of goes in one ear and out the other when someone tells you to do something. Like it's like your parents saying like clean your room.
Yes.
What do they know? Like, my room's fine. I like the way I do it. Like, it's no one likes to be told what to do. Like, I don't. So, really trying to work with someone to bring out their strengths and hear their side of the story, you might learn something about what you actually want as the outcome. Maybe you get to know them more and you realize, I don't think this person's ever going to operate this way. Maybe there's a way we can meet in the middle and suit what their strengths are to what you're kind of looking for.
Mm, I think like too, you bring up a good point where like we all have so many misunderstandings about each other. Like one thing happens and then we're like, they think I'm lazy, they think I'm this. Like we have this narrative in our head. Like something that makes me think about this is I had an assistant that I worked with who was like new, and our relationship is like so strong now, but in the beginning it went through like such a turbulent period because like there were things that would happen where I would misinterpret it, and in my head I'd fill in the worst. Of course I'd be like where are they, why aren't they in the room, they're like running behind, they're just like lollygagging, blah blah blah. And then she's thinking, like when I'm like kind of upset about this, she's thinking, why does she always rush me, why is she so particular about like blah blah blah. Like there's like all these things in our head. And then once we actually talked about what was happening, what we realized was she and I had very different ideas of like what a good day and a bad day was. Like I drive home at the end of the day and I'm like, oh, it's so good. Like we made a patient laugh, like we had fun. She's going home thinking it was a bad day. Like we forgot this, or like this happened, I didn't do this. She thinks that like, so once I realized her definition of a good day, one, I realized like, oh, how I can like reinforce that and encourage that and show her. Like, I actually think like she was doing a good job, but I was not doing my job of telling her how good she was doing. And then two, once I realized what her idea of a good day was, I understood so much more why things were happening the way they were. I was like, oh, she's not late because she's lollygagging. She's actually working in stereo like 10 times harder on this because like she wants to help with this. Like, oh, it's not that like there's so many things that I look back and I'm like, oh, that was through a lens of me misunderstanding her and her intentions. So I think like that brings up a great point because we're all just walking around with these like preconceived notions, but unless we talk about it and like talk about where these things are coming from and how we feel, we're never gonna actually know why someone acts the way they do or doesn't do what they do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you just spend so much brain power thinking about these scenarios and playing out things and wondering and assuming. And all you had to
Totally.
do, like what we're saying, is the first instance, instead of weeks and weeks going by of you feeling frustrated, just sit and listen and ask and be inquisitive. And you're going to realize a lot, and you'll find a way as a leader to, yes, direct the situation, get things running efficiently, make everyone feel successful. But like you said, you learn how they like to be praised, what makes them feel gratified and fulfilled at work. So there's so much to be said about being a leader. And both of us, like as associate doctors, we're not even owners, which I think is another interesting part of dentistry, how the dentist, whether you're an owner or not, is still a leader to the team and still kind of a senior to the rest of the team members, even if you're not the owner. So you still have a lot of leadership skills to grow and develop and utilize no matter what type of ownership or associateship role that you're in.
Totally. It's kind of like overnight, you walk across that little stage, you get your diploma, and then it's like, okay, all of a sudden you got promoted like way higher than you were before. You went from the bottom of the totem pole as a student to like, yeah, now you're expected to like lead and things. I'm curious, you mentioned before like there's a couple instances of this. What's like a second story or situation like this?
Yeah, I had two more I thought of, both from now working as a dentist. I
Oh,
mean,
great.
obviously, just us talking about this, we've already brought up like so many scenarios where like we just, it's so much, it's all the time in life. Like you just don't address things head on when you could.
Mm-hmm.
But one time was I get a CE stipend from work. Well, not even a stipend. They will cover any CE that we agree
That's
is like
beautiful.
good for the office and going to benefit my career, which is insane. Is so great. But so like there's that understanding that like they're pretty much going to say yes if I can present it as beneficial. But even with that, I still was so scared for weeks and weeks and weeks to bring up like, hey, I want to do the implant CE. Like, I think I'm ready for this next step. I want to grow things. I know it's going to bring in a lot more revenue to the office, all that jazz. Like I was so scared to ask. Finally asked. And then it was like such an easy conversation because the people that I work for are literally so chill and awesome. Like it's like I know that, but I'm still so scared to ask. Took me weeks to ask. Then they said yes. But then, to sign up for a course, you have to pay for it. And this was a lot of money. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to put this on my card because that's a lot of money. So I was needing to like use the company card. And again, like 2 weeks go by of every time I'm in the office with like the owner, like thinking like, oh, okay, he's not doing something right now. I should ask. I should ask for the card. I need to ask for the card, even though they literally already said yes to me going. I was still taking like a week or two of like, oh, I should probably ask. Oh, I should probably ask. And I just like literally didn't for like 2 weeks. And then I finally was like, had it pulled up on the screen. I was like, oh, yeah, like I need to fill this in. Like, how do I use the card? But like I would have it pulled up on my screen and like minimize it and open it and minimize it
That's
and
so
open it like for like 2 weeks, even though they already said yes. Because I felt awkward asking him for so much like money, even though they already said yes and knew how much it was. So that's one example that's just like funny. And I feel like, I don't know, maybe as you being a fellow Cancer, maybe you like really relate to everything I
Yes.
say. I don't know. But
Oh my gosh, 100%. Haley, we're like the same person. No, literally, like I can so relate to the like, okay, like I can ask him now. I'm like, no, 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 never mind. He seems stressed. I'm like, let me ask him now. I'm like, no, 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 like that's like we're having so much fun. I don't want to bring it up. Like, where do you think that comes from? The feeling of like I'm afraid to ask? Because I think like maybe it's like a Cancer thing, maybe it's a female thing, maybe it's just a young doctor figuring themselves out kind of thing. I think we just really underestimate like our value. And I'm like, oh, that's like so much money for them to put into me. You know what I mean?
exactly. Yeah, it's the money, and it interestingly enough in dentistry translates a lot to treatment plan acceptance and like
Mm,
saying, "Hey, like you need a full mouth rehab and I can do it and it's $40,000." Like a lot of people, especially as a new grad, are like I could never say that or do that, but
right.
like we can. And so it's the same thing, but it's exactly what you said. It's fear of feeling like, what if they change their mind and they say, like you're not ready or it's too much, like we're not going to do it. Like basically I was afraid he would change his mind somehow or something.
Mm.
So
He's like,
that's why I didn't
actually,
ask.
now that you mention it.
Yeah, which is it's so like I'm like you can know it, but I didn't like feel it. So it's two
Yeah.
different things. Like your mind needs to be stronger than the emotions, like mind over matter and the discipline of doing things even when they're uncomfortable or even when you feel scared. And that's something that I think we're all always like stretching that rubber band and getting a little bit more comfortable with putting ourselves out there in all regards. But like I said, it even goes into talking with patients and showing
Mhm.
your confidence with them and presenting big plans with confidence.
It totally shows up in like how you present things. And it's so funny because I look back now on like when I first started and like there would be cases where like I'm recommending something that on paper I'm saying, yes, I can do this for you. And like, yes, you need this. But then I think like people can also tell my body language and tone and everything totally probably didn't match up to it because I never said yes. Because I would probably be like, hey, you need like these four front teeth like crowned and veneered. And I remember one person was so excited. They're like, yes, I've been waiting forever to do it. And I'm like, okay, yeah, we'll send you the estimate. And I feel like she's like, why does it feel like she doesn't want to do this? Like, I feel like I was probably just like, yeah, okay. I mean, like, see if you can afford it. I mean, like, whatever, you don't have to, like, just like
Mhm.
whimpering away. What was, you mentioned there were two more. What's the third one?
Yeah, so the other one is again was at work. So our like office manager kind of handles the payroll. And my initial contract was first 3 months of a guarantee and then after that it goes to a percent of production. But if I out earn the guarantee, I could switch to the percent of production. And again, very fortunate associate position, I was already doing that at the second month. But for the first 3 months, I was still paid the minimum, but I
Oh,
knew that I was out producing it at the start of the second month. So basically, by the third month, I should have been paid more than I was. And again, I assume no ill intent. It's not that I think that they're trying to like take money from me and like not pay me well. I think it's just an oversight because she probably didn't even know what the contract said. And they just told her, this is how much she gets, put it in the payroll. And no one really thought another thing about it. But we overthink it and just think, well, like, again, I don't want to seem ungrateful for this large sum of money that they're already paying me, especially
and
coming
it's your
right out of
first job.
school.
Yeah.
Yeah, like coming right out of school, it's still a lot of money. But I'm like, well, but I know that technically I need to switch to the production now. So it was so intimidating for me to go, and I didn't know if I should ask the owner doctor, or if I should just go right to the office manager, or if I should talk to both. And I was like so unsure. I was like, do I like have the contract ready, like all highlighted and like serious, or just say like, hey, like I was like, so I went about it as kind of how we were talking about all these other examples. Open, curious, calm. And I went to the office manager. I was like, hey, I just have a question about like how my pay is calculated. I was wanting to make sure I can like look at the reports and understand them. So that was kind of my way to inch into it. And
That's
then she was
so
like
good.
showing me the payroll, like she was showing me the EagleSoft and how to run different production reports and blah, blah, blah. She's like, this is what I use. And then I go through and I check and make sure that nothing that was deleted off is supposed to be or not supposed to be, to make sure you're getting like exactly what you're supposed to. And that's how I'm going to calculate it after your 3 months. And then I was like, oh, actually, like, I'm pretty sure my contract said this. And then she's like, oh, okay, like, I'll talk to the doctor and get it squared away. And then within a couple weeks, my next paycheck reflected like the difference of what I should have been paid plus what I was supposed to be paid. And it was all great. But again, it's just like, I was overthinking that for like probably 3 weeks. And I was just like, oh, like, I don't know. Cause I was also wondering, like, am I misinterpreting my contract? Am
Right.
I not looking? Cause in order to know that I was out doing what my minimum was, I had to run the reports in EagleSoft and look myself. And I was like, well, maybe I'm not looking at the right thing. And just, I was insecure because I was so new out of school. But eventually I just asked and again went with curious and asking questions, and it worked out.
It's such a good way to handle it. I love how you just kind of like ask the question, see how she handled it, and you're like, well, actually, I've been waiting for this. But like it's such a good point. Like think about how many like sleepless or like long drives home you were thinking about it. And I love how you also play the different scenarios. You're like, okay, there's lawyer Haley who like has the receipts. And then there's like chill Haley who's like,
Yeah.
hey, like you were practicing all these scenarios. Oh, that's so relatable.
Yeah, I
Um,
literally wasted so much time thinking about it. Went to them, it was like, "It's no big deal." They're like, "Oh, yeah, sorry about that, like, here's the money, like, good job, we're so proud of you." Like, it was literally no big deal in, like, all of these scenarios, but anything to do with money, just I
mm.
I still you just don't wanna seem ungrateful, like, they are letting me work at this office and helping patients trust me and giving me this great opportunity. I hate to feel like I'm nickel and diming anyone when we are making, like, a good living, but it's like, technically, this is what it's supposed to be, so I'm gonna ask. Like,
Totally. I know it's so trippy because it's like your first job, like big girl job ever. So you're like, holy shit, this is like the most money I've ever seen coming from one thing. But then you're also like, well, but we're also missing like this much, which is also a lot of money to me. So it's just so interesting. In my head, being a dentist, being a provider of any sort is like the ultimate journey in like both self love, your relationship with yourself, and your relationship with like money, worth, value. It's all kind of related, but I feel like being a provider is like self-help boot camp because you have to constantly up level while you're trying to help other people.
mhm.
Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing those stories. As per usual, you went above and beyond. You provided me 3. I'm so excited to edit this episode because I know it's going to be like no editing. I love when I'm with a guest where I could just listen to them talk forever, and you are totally that. So if you could just leave with everyone where they can hear you on your podcast, where they can find you, all of that good stuff.
Yeah, so my podcast is The Dental Download. I'm literally about to record with Connie right after this, so make sure you guys check it out. I have 2 other episodes with Connie on my
Mhm.
podcast too, so if you want more of what was originally the Pharma Dental content, get over there and listen to how we were when we were little babies compared to
Mm.
now. It'll be very entertaining.
Yay, thank you so much. And thank you so much for everyone for listening. If you like what you heard, please leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and we'll see you guys next time.